And good evening, everyone, and welcome to The Rundown. It's great to have you with us, joining us tonight. Well, we lead off with those stories making news around the country, and that includes that two-day protest by affiliates of the Trade Union Congress. Now, although what the government brands as an illegal action is now over, government is still assessing its impact. Leading the charge is Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Davis, who today held a news conference on the matter. Corval Parfum tells us about an appeal the Prime Minister made.
Prime Minister Davis today inviting those junior doctors who stayed off the job this week to return to the negotiating table. 3 issues remain unresolved, mainly health insurance, the finalization of agreements, and overtime payment. The latter causing an impasse, and so today, Mr. Davis trying to appeal to the public's moral conscience and the doctors' common sense in hopes of finding a resolution.
Let me be very clear. The government is not negotiating against healthcare workers. We are negotiating on behalf of the Bahamian people.
Historically, government feels for whatever the reason, junior doctors for years have apparently not adhered to hospital guidelines about swiping in and out of work. And now with the issue of overtime being raised, both the Prime Minister and hospital officials believe this is a matter of accountability.
So the issue is not about reimbursement for hours spent, because every other employee in the PHA that works overtime, there is a system for swiping, there's a system for verification, there's a system for approval, and then it goes to finance for payment.
But for me to be able to take taxpayers' money to satisfy their claim of what the overtime amount is, I need to be able to verify it. Now, how do I verify it? Right? And that is what it is.
The Prime Minister even offering this compromise to the doctors.
Unless they don't want to work overtime. If they agree, well, we'll not be claiming overtime, well, fine.
Without question, the events of this week have been a nightmare and a headache. But today, hospital officials giving assurances that at no time during this week's ordeal was the well-being of patients at any of the nation's hospitals compromised.
Thankfully enough, we did not have any emergency cases, gunshot wounds and all of those happening during that time, and so we were spared. But those services went on, and we will continue to update the Bahamian people about their rescheduled appointments.
Bahamas Tonight, I'm Corval Parfum.
Thanks a lot, Corval. Before we even get on to the next story, I think we all are rooting for there to be resolved, particularly for doctors, right? Because this is an age-old problem. I mean, I remember as a young reporter covering these same issues with the junior doctors and, of course, the Physician Alliance, they were called back then, but then it's the consultant doctors. The same old concerns. The concerns of being able to deal with overtime, the backlog of overtime due, where you're clocking in or not, and, of course, the insurance. Now, you would think these are basic things that doctors and physicians should have at a healthcare institution. Insurance, something goes wrong, you want to be covered. You know, something happens, you want to be covered. I mean, you are putting your life at risk to take care of other people. You should have insurance. So why that can't be resolved, I don't know the particulars about it. We do know, we heard from the Prime Minister, they're talking about the clocking in. Doctors don't want to clock in. I think they feel it's degrading if you have to clock in as a doctor. But on the flip side, if you want to be paid overtime, then how are they going to check what hours you work in? Unless you punch in and punch out. How will they know how many hours extra that you worked? The Prime Minister is very true when he says, okay, if you don't want to clock in, then you clearly don't want overtime, because how are we going to measure it? It makes sense, right? And so you would think that people can come to some dialogue regarding that. Now, the issue of outstanding overtime is a complex one. And here's why it's complex. It's easy to say going forward, we got to make sure if you're documented to work overtime and you're owed it, you are paid it, and the government has to pay you what they owe. But what makes this issue complex is you are now talking that when you sign these agreements, it doesn't just begin today. It includes retroactivity. It's retroactive back to whenever the deal was first sealed. That means if government agrees today, there's years of backlog and back pay that must be paid. You're talking millions of dollars. Why? Because you're talking about scores of doctors, some who may have even retired. That means the recalculation of those retirement benefits to include the retroactivity. It's very complex that when you say, yes, we will agree, that means you have to go back into all those records. People who quit, people who resigned, people who have terminated, people who retired, and that means they now are entitled to that benefit because it includes a period when they once worked. That is complex. Not only complex, that is expensive. So before you sit and say, oh boy, why can't they just give them their money, is the complexity of the situation. How do you resolve the issue and who all will be entitled to it? It's not an easy thing to solve. And so we just hope and pray that there is some level of compromise on both sides so that both sides come out on the end winning, which we want. We want our doctors happy. They have to take care of us. They're the ones that sacrifice for us. We want them happy. But also we have to bear in mind the fact that we want our country to be able to run effectively, and there's only so much money, and only so much you can do, and so much you can give. At the end of the day, we have to make sure that we can balance out the scales and balance out the levels. So I think it's all well for us to say we all are hoping for the best, that when they do come back to the table, there's some level of compromise so they can move forward. Let's go into another story that involves the Prime Minister. Prime Minister also headlined the 2025 Business Outlook today. He announced plans to tackle long-standing issues that have boxed out businesses, overburdened consumers, and stifled growth. Take a look.
Through a new price comparison app, consumers will have the power to find the best price for any item and make informed decisions. It takes too long to open up a business. It takes too long to access government services. And let's face it, it takes too long even to open a bank account. I've heard the stories from entrepreneurs who have been caught in these delays. What we see here is not just inefficiency, it's a barrier to progress. And I'll tell you now, it just cannot continue. No government can build a prosperous nation alone. Building the future we envision requires partnership, a partnership between government, business, and the Bahamian people. This is not about one administration or one sector carrying the weight.
All right, there you have it. How long have we been talking about needing to improve the business, the way we do business in this country? It's consecutive administrations. I've been talking about the fact that we need to do better. So now, here's the thing. Here's the thing that's important. For decades, we've talked about it. Guess what has to happen now? We've got to do it. We've got to just do it. What does Nike say? Just do it. We've talked about it long enough. We agree it needs to fix. We agree it needs to change. But now it's time to take the action to do that. Now, past administrations and even this present one have all made steps in the right direction to improve the way of doing business. So I think we ought to give credit to all of these administrations who have actually done something. It's a step in the right direction to improve the ease of doing business. However, it's not enough steps. Let's be honest with that. There's not enough steps, and at the end of the day, there's still too many issues when it comes to doing business in this country. And I don't know, I'm gonna be honest with you, I do not know if it's really the government's fault, all governments, because what you will find in the public service in particular, the stifling issues aren't necessarily policy issues. It's people in the service that just clog up the service, the system. People in management in these institutions that just stifle progress and don't want to see it advance. And so when you think as an administration that your policies are working and that you've implemented something that's good to advance the ease of doing business, and you find out it's not working, and you look closer, you realize the reason it's not working is because somebody ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing because people got their own agendas. And so I think there has to be not only execution of implementing ease of doing business, but also watchdogs to monitor and make sure that people are not stifling the process to make it easier. You go in some institutions in the public service, the service is top notch, and you're like, wow, where did this happen? Where did this efficiency come from? Well, it's because implementation of ease of doing business is working. And then you go in some institutions and you're like, why are we still here as government? Why are we still doing this as a public service? And you recognize it's because of poor management in those particular areas. There must be a better way. And so now we must stop with the talk, and we must enforce the ease of doing business and hold people accountable who stifle that. Hold people accountable who stand in the way of us doing business and making it easier. We must uproot that kind of an attitude and mentality, arrest it, so that our country can move forward. We are still too far behind as a nation. We ought to be more progressive. There ought to be more ways of getting things done without having to go on the line and stand and fill out forms and fill out papers and wait weeks for a return on it. It ought to happen faster. And I think if we put a considerable effort behind it, we'll see the change. And the Prime Minister keeping his word on sustaining his administration's 2025 theme, building a more affordable Bahamas. His government is putting Bahamians first to ensure they have majority ownership stake and build their dreams right at home. Now, tonight, we're going to take a look at that pretty much to youth development, specifically within the job market. All right, and tonight we're going to be joining me will be Agatha Marcel. You know her. I call her the training guru. She's the executive chairman of the National Training Agency. That's the arm of government that's responsible for job training, apprenticeship programs, and supplying skilled labor nationwide. We're going to talk to her at the start of a new year. We'll hear from her on expert human resources and public relations, professional facilitator, trainer, motivational speaker, lecturer, conference presenter, former member of parliament. The list goes on and on. The bottom line is she's qualified to talk to us to figure out how do we get the year started right, what needs to happen in our workplaces, how do we change our attitudes, our minds, our mental state of affair. And talking about mental state of affair, also on the show, we're going to talk to you got to get it right, because you know they're either psychologists or they're psychiatrists. But we're going to talk to a mental health professional from Soundlands Rehabilitation Center who talked to us about mental health in our country. It's serious. The statistics are alarming. They're getting more alarming by the day. That means you could be in a room, 7 people, and perhaps one of those 7 persons may have some challenges with mental health. That means I'm in this room right now, and me and the cameraman standing around me, one of us could have an issue. I'm looking. We're going to talk about it tonight and see how we can get help for people and how people function with it. You're watching a rundown. We're back after this. Stay close.
Here at Immigration Care Service, you can trust us, especially if you have experienced issues or problems with the U.S. immigration at the borders. We'll do our best to provide options and solutions to immigration roadblocks, so travelers can continue visiting the U.S. and residents can continue living their lives in the U.S. without worries. The best part? Our services are affordable and accessible. Take the mystery, confusion, and fear out of your immigration concerns. Contact Immigration Care Service today.
The United States of America just voted in its 47th president, Donald J. Trump, and we're packing our bags and heading to Washington, D.C. to be there on Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2025. The stage is set, and here's your opportunity to be a part of this historic journey when you sign up for one of our affordable advertising packages. Your business will be included in our live on-location news stories in the National Report and Access Now. And that's not all. The Rundown with Clint Watson will also air live from Washington, D.C. Thought we were done? Not yet. Our dynamic social media teams will be in D.C. as well, giving you live, interactive, up-to-the-minute updates as it all unfolds. Don't delay. Call our sales department now at 502-3800 and reserve your exclusive D.C. package. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you all set? Well, let's hop on that flight. You know we always have you covered, because only the sun covers the Bahamas better.
Hi, I'm Brent Burrows, Vice President of Retail and Sales at CBS Bahamas and the CBS Pro Store. Not only do we guarantee the best prices on all your favorite building materials, but we're proud to offer the best delivery program in all of Nassau. Whether you buy 1 box of screws or a truckload of plywood, island-wide delivery is just $5. And for our Family Island customers, we're proud to offer complimentary drop-off to the mailboat of your choice. Visit us today at the CBS Pro Store on Robinson Road and check out our website to set up your next delivery.
welcome back to the Rundown. A special good night to all of you who are online in the Lion's Den. I see you. And then those of you joining us by YouTube and whatever platform you're watching, it's great to have you with us. Well, if you live here in New Providence and drive on Gladstone Road, or even in Grand Bahama, they have office here as well, you will see nestled at the intersection of Munnings Drive, the National Training Agency's headquarters. Now, according to its website, the agency has provided workforce preparation training to more than 8,000 Bahamian youth in New Providence, Exuma, and Grand Bahama over the past 10 years. Successful graduates, probably more than that by now, successful graduates have even went on to earn local and international certification. The organization has also provided job placement for over 65% of our graduates. Now, impressive data, and to shed more light on the agency's plans for 2025 is Executive Chairman Agatha Marcel. Good evening and welcome to the Rundown. It's good to have you here.
Good evening, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So I want to get into a couple of things I think can help our viewers tonight, because it is the start of the year. Normally, it's almost like hitting the reset button in the work environment. Everybody comes back to work from the Christmas holidays, making New Year's resolutions. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to be better. I want to succeed in this particular area. It seems to be the calm, I call it before the storm, later on down in workplaces, in most workplaces. Right about now, people are in seminars, they're engaged in what the vision is for the year, they're getting restarts and resets. And then somewhere along the line, it begins to deteriorate and we're finding ourselves back in the same old patterns. What should people be doing as we are in this, what we call reset month of January, where there's so much New Year's resolutions about the workplace, about making ourselves better contributors to our work environment?
First of all, Clint, I have to correct something you said.
Go ahead, please do, correct.
I really don't believe that the National Training Agency is considered as the official arm of training in the government.
You don't believe that?
No, because there are several ministries with really substantive training operations.
And then we also have the public service training.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So later on, I'll try to explain what we do if I get the opportunity. And the other thing is, the National Training Agency is not responsible for the apprenticeship program project. That is a separate entity that is fully legislated, will operate under a board of directors as the apprenticeship entity.
Okay.
The National Training Agency will partner with the apprenticeship project to do pre-apprenticeship training. So with that out of the way, I can then go to your question.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Sure.
I believe that one of the things employers don't understand and employees don't understand is training isn't some magic that exists on its own or in a vacuum. For training to be successful, any type of training, there has to be reinforcement continuously of that training. There are people who get the training. They must be held accountable for what they do. So if you send your employees out to training, when they come back, you should want to see a difference in what they do. So in order to make that happen, you have to have very effective supervisors and managers.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say that's probably one of the weakest links in our workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we put all those things together, and it's also helpful to send people out to training in the area of what they need in terms of improving their skills. So you just can't put a notice up on the board and say, you go to training, you go to training, you go to training. That's a waste of money. So when they go out to the training, employers must understand that they have a responsibility to their employees to make sure that they're doing what they are supposed to be doing. What will help employers do that is their system of standard operating procedures.
Oh, here we go.
That's set up in the workplace. You are to know what to do. You are to know how to do what to do. And so if you don't have that, and that's how you're able to hold your employees accountable, because there's this procedures to set up to do this show.
Correct.
So if they are not doing that, if they're not following them, this show won't be successful.
Correct.
And now you will know what you need to correct.
I think that's one of the biggest breaches that we find in workplaces, because what we find people do nowadays, particularly if there's a new employee, is you go and you sit with somebody who's already there doing the job, and they show you the way they do it, and no one's following a standard operating procedure. You just learn based on the person who's training you, and how they do it is how you adopt to it, rather than a formal training saying this is a procedure. Here's how it should be done. And everybody has to do the same procedure. And so you believe, as agencies, we probably have to go back and put the first thing in place. Put the SOPs in order first. Before we can then talk about enforcing how we do what we do and train what we do.
That's right, because everybody needs to be on the same page. And then you won't so much be delving into personalities and attitudes of people, because now you have this set of things that you measure against. Are you doing that? Are you doing that? Are you doing that? If they're not doing it, then you find out why. You know, what are the gaps? What do you need to do this, to make this happen? So when you talk about the beginning of a new year envisioning, you need to see where it is first you want to go. And you have to map that out. You have to know, I'm going to get there. I'm going to be there. And then you work backwards from that. What do I need to do to get me there? And then that's where the leadership and the supervision comes in. Because then now, as the managers and supervisors and leaders, you have to motivate your people. Oh, no, I take that back. You have to inspire.
Why inspire, not motivate?
Because you can't motivate me. If I don't want to do, I am not going to do. Motivation is intrinsic. It comes from you. But you can inspire people by your behavior and your leadership skills, by treating them fairly, by listening, by doing all the positive things that's going to help to build their trust in you as an employer or as a manager, to make them want to do their work with enthusiasm.
How much of a company's success weighs on the ability to have managers who are good at what they do and operate effectively? How much of that success weighs on that?
I can't be exactly quantitative about it, but I can tell you, if you have lousy managers and supervisors, then you will most likely have unproductive, low-performing employees. And as I go around to a lot of businesses, it confounds me, the lack of supervision and the lack of oversight of people. Now, that's not to say the people are going to turn right around and they're going to say, oh, you standing on our shoulders,
you're
micromanaging me. But that's why your name is manager, okay? To make sure that they do. And it's okay. It's how you manage. Because if you manage in a certain way that seems like micromanaging, then that's what they're going to say. But if you give them the opportunity and learn the art of correcting as opposed to criticizing, then you begin to develop the kind of workplace that really produces well.
Before we go to a break, I have to ask you, how important is the way people appear on the job? How important is that to the success of the job as far as appearance?
I think it is very important because you should portray what your workplace is, what your job is. I'll give you an example. Sometimes, if I have reason to go to a very high office, my skin crawls for some of the people that I see. And I'm like, I'm thinking, how can you come to work like this? How can you look like that in you know, coming to a place that represents the country? I don't understand that. So I want them to ask me to come and do something about it, because we can do something about it. We run the National Training Agency. We treat our employees wonderfully. We are a government entity, but we don't behave as such. You know, you have been in our premises. They are pristine.
Yes, very much.
Excellent. And people said to me, oh, you know, that ain't government. I say, oh, yes, it is. But the people in it have a sense of pride in what we do. And that's what we have to try to instill in our employees, that pride.
That's important. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the programs you provide, the courses you provide, and how that's contributing to hopefully making our workforce a bit stronger. All right? You're watching The Rundown. We'll be back right after this.
Make your company representative stand out through an embroidery design on your uniforms from Janae's Uniform Center, Chesapeake Road. Janae's utilizes the latest state-of-the-art embroidery technology to monogram large and small quantities of shirts, caps, bags, and other articles. If you don't already have a digitized logo, Janae's can design and digitize your idea and bring it to life. Then install the logo of your choice from their large selections of 27 stock colors of golf shirts in cotton or dry fit, caps, or workwear. Call 394-8385 or 6 or visit www.janaes.com.
We're here at the Nassau Village Community Center project, where over the past 17 months, we've hired over 20 Bahamian subcontractors to bring this beautiful project to fruition.
I've been living in Nassau Village for more than 19 years, and to see a project like this bring great joy and pride to me.
This state-of-the-art multi-purpose community center will serve as a crime-fighting initiative in the community. Also help with the education of our kids in this community and a hurricane shelter.
Yeah, and it also shows what we as Bahamians can achieve when we work hand in hand with each other.
We have the technical know-how, and we can pretty much deliver on any project here in the Bahamas or in the world.
Bahamas Pipe and the Bahamian Company, they prove that they believe in Bahamians.
Based on the outcome of this project, I don't think they're disappointed in giving a small person an opportunity to do a job such as this.
The more opportunity they get, the more opportunity we will get.
If you look around and see the work done so far, it just shows what we as Bahamians can do.
Hello, friends. I'm Mario Nuri, inviting you to the next A Familiar Walk as we walk down memory lane with our program over the years. Memories are the key not to the past, but to the future. So join us with former Governor Generals Dame Ivy Dumont, Sir Orville Turnquest, Sir Arthur Folkes, former Prime Minister Perry Christie, and former Deputy Prime Minister and now Governor General Dame Cynthia Pratt. At every phase of our life, we make memories that we cherish all our lives, and we ask you to join us for a few of ours.
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching The Rundown. We're continuing our conversation with the National Training Agency's Executive Chairman, Agatha Marcel. Important information you should have as you reset in the workplace this year. And we were talking about it in a break, and I had to go back to it. We're talking about wardrobe and making sure people dress appropriately to represent the brand of where they work. And that seems to be an issue in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, because everything we see on TV or we buy online, we believe we could wear in the workplace. You can't. You ought to look professional if that's what you represent and where you represent. Have you had employees come to work dressing inappropriately? What do you do?
Send them home. They have 1 hour for lunch. Go home, fix yourself, and come back. Because, see, it ought not be your brand or my brand. And employees have this thing going around, especially the female. Oh, my brand, I'm branding myself. And that means long winkies and whatever else it means, right? But it's not an individual brand. It's your company's brand. What do you want ZNS, Bahamas Broadcasting Corporation, to represent? And then you live up to that. And I said just before we went to break something that I think it's important. You cannot be on the outside what you don't have on the inside.
Wow.
I also think that's one of the problems with our country. People don't, they want a certain outcome, but they don't live to produce that outcome.
Say that again.
We want a certain outcome, but we don't live to produce the outcome.
Wow.
Okay, you can only bring out what is in you. It don't matter what your mouth says. It's your example that's going to make the difference. In very local common talk, we say, walk the talk. And so, if you don't live right, you can't do right.
Wow. You know, a lot of businesses, when they try to streamline, they take away that money that might have been identified for training. Is that a mistake?
Yes, I believe that there ought to be adequate monies in a company's budget for training. But the training has to be specific and pinpointed to certain things. Sometimes I wonder if companies realize one of the main purposes of that performance appraisal vehicle is to help you with determining who needs training, what kind of training, because you're always looking to build up your employees. You're not looking to see them fail. You want them to succeed.
It's supposed to be a manual to help them succeed,
yes,
not a police report.
Yes, your company succeeds.
Are there people that you think that can be deemed untrainable?
No, I don't think so. But you have to put people in the right places. One of the things about workplaces, they don't pretty much pay a whole lot of attention to who they put in these jobs or who they hire for the job. Clint, if you need an apple in a job and you hire a banana,
trouble.
That banana will never be an apple. The only thing that banana will do is get rottener and rottener. So it's important to put some focus on who you're hiring. Now, we know how that goes.
I'll just tell you.
So,
you've been an MP.
Yeah. So my thing is, what do you expect What can you expect when you just do these sorts of things?
Yeah.
Listen, you said earlier in your introduction, we have so much work to do. But I want to see the person who's willing to do some real, you know, to change this.
Yeah.
Other than that, it will be like this. There are people, right, who, I didn't get my job from you, so you can't tell me what to do.
Right. You can't do it to me.
Man, because you ain't put me here. You ain't know how I get here. So, oh boy, you need to know how you... It's hard enough when you put the right people or when you have people who can do it.
Well, some level of
Can
skill.
you imagine?
Yeah.
Just...
And that's what's killing our front line, particularly in the public service.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of people who are misfits in those areas. A lot of people who have never been formally trained, don't understand what this job represents.
That's right. That's right. So here's what I say. You talk about the government's use of the National Training Agency. It's the government National Training Agency. They pay a subvention for the agency. My common sense tells me, if you want to hire, especially frontline people, yeah, you could go choose some. Make them go through the agency.
Yeah.
Get a report from the agency on the ones that, you know, do well, blah, blah, and you still hire them. But at least those ones who are not deserving, because there are some people, lots of them, lots of young people, we deal with them, who don't want to work.
They don't want to work.
They want some money.
Ah.
But they don't want to work, okay? And so there are little things we could do without really totally upsetting the apple cart, you know. Politicians can do them, employers can do it, managers and stuff can do it. But you just have to, work in cooperation together instead of being adversarial. At the National Training Agency, we tell people all the time, we don't compete with anybody. That's not what we do. We are trying to take those young adults. The Ministry of Education statistics that I got said about 54 of them don't do well enough coming out of school to earn a high school diploma.
Wow.
They don't have BJCs or BGCSEs, and I'm telling you that because we see it every day. So we aren't fighting with anybody. We are trying to find a way to get them basically skilled so that they don't have the academic knowledge, but they have what they can do with their hands. So we develop butlers and servers and room attendants and laundry people and all sorts of people that can actually step out of their program and go into the workplace and do good jobs. And before they get the skills training, they go through 4 partial weeks of soft skills training. Now, you got to take that with a grain of salt, because I want you to think like this. I live for, just to say, 24 years, 22 years with my bad ways, okay?
Right.
Doing nothing right, rude, stink, I'm carrying on. I don't want anybody to think 50 hours
They're going to change
over
that.
a week is going to change that. Now, maybe you will hit something in the heart of those who want to be inspired. And so that's what we do. So we have about, I would say, maybe about a 78% success rate with those young people at the agency, because we don't play with them. They come in to do the training. They know it's discipline. They know it's manners. They miss more than 2 sessions, they are out of the program.
So,
and we document it,
wow.
it's coming back.
So I give them good practice of not calling in sick all the time.
That's right.
Show up to work.
Because the government spends money on them. I want the Bahamian people to know each of them costs us about $600 plus
wow.
for 14 weeks of training. And you gonna mess up and you gonna not care. And the government does not need to be ashamed or embarrassed about what they're doing. That's the amount of money we spend on each individual, okay? And the government does lots and lots of things, and we just sit back. We are the most ungrateful, ingratitudinous people that I know, and we have to stop it. We have to stop it. Give me. Do this, free this, free that. No, sir. Work.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I didn't mean to rouse.
That's all right. That's all right. Your passion is coming out, and I'm sitting here because I understand it. We got how many minutes left? We got about 2 minutes left. Talk to us about some of the things that people can look forward to seeing come out of the National Training Agency this year.
Okay, just before I do that, I want to tell you, this pen, and I have one for you, this is ILM. This is the Institute of Leadership and Management. A powerful team building, supervisory, management, leadership organization out of London.
Wow.
It's the top tier of the City and Guilds group. Out of ILM last year came our new Commissioner of Police. Just after her and her cohort finished the program, the previous commissioner promoted her and some of the others and sent her down to Freeport. And only she can really tell you how much this program benefited her and them.
Wow.
But it did. So that's the second half of what we do. The second half is to promote productivity and performance by doing the ILM training, and we do level 2, level 3, and we're working on getting the permission to do level 4, which is higher up. And so that's the vehicle, because the National Training Agency's aim and focus is to prepare people for the workforce at entry level, and then to increase performance and productivity amongst people who are already working.
That's awesome. I think it's going to be an even more impactful year, because I think people recognize and are recognizing the importance of investing in people and investing in training so that we have better performances on the job and in the public service. Agatha Marcel, it's always a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for your words of wisdom.
Welcome.
And we appreciate you being here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to have a discussion, a serious discussion about mental health and how we can prevent suicides in this country. We need to be able to address this issue. I'm going to talk about it in the rundown when we come back. Stay with us.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Dr. Gale, and I'm inviting you to be a part of a journey where we open the Word of God to receive strength, to receive empowerment from the Scriptures as they have been written. Get your Bibles, get your cup of coffee or your tea, because this journey is gonna be great. This is your day of victory.
Here at Immigration Care Service, you can trust us, especially if you have experienced issues or problems with the U.S. immigration at the borders. We'll do our best to provide options and solutions to immigration roadblocks, so travelers can continue visiting the U.S. and residents can continue living their lives in the U.S. without worries. The best part? Our services are affordable and accessible. Take the mystery, confusion, and fear out of your immigration concerns. Contact Immigration Care Service today.
In the Caribbean, the changing climate is more than just an environmental issue. It poses a threat to our health. From respiratory problems to heat stress, climate change and variability deeply impact our well-being. With our forecast through November 2024 highlighting upcoming climate conditions that will exacerbate health risks, it's important to be prepared. Here are some key climate and health insights for the months ahead.
In these months, the risk of allergic rhinitis, the risk of asthma in vulnerable people is likely to increase due to Saharan dust incursions. The risk of gastrointestinal illness due to water supply being compromised, the risk of skin infections due to wading in floodwaters, the risk of leptospirosis due to displaced rodents. They could contaminate household items, levels of morbidity and the rate of hospitalizations due to heat stress. And we may also see increases in the incidence of dengue, chikungunya, and Zika cases due to increases in mosquito populations, particularly the Aedes aegypti mosquito, as a result of high temperatures and increasing humidity in the coming months.
Stay informed about weather forecasts and seasonal climate updates. Your health and well-being depend on it. For more information and updates, follow CIMH on X, Facebook, and Instagram.
Welcome back to the Rundown. Mental health has become a very hot button issue here in the Bahamas. According to the Royal Bahamas Police Force's 2023 stats, 80 attempted suicides were investigated. 6 suicides took place, with the majority of the cases centered around right here in the province. At the start of 2025, an attempted suicide was reported by police just last weekend. Police say a 31-year-old male was found semi-conscious at a residence on Sandilands Village Road off Foxhill Road after allegedly ingesting an unknown quantity of over-the-counter pills. It's a disturbing issue that Bahamians need to get more information on, and that's our job tonight. Joining us is psychiatrist at Sandilands Rehabilitation Center, Dr. Petra Forbes. Welcome to the Rundown, Dr. Forbes.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. It's good to have you with us, and to talk about this very important issue. And I guess I want to start right there. What are we seeing are the root causes to attempted suicides or suicides that are actually successful?
So according to the World Mental Health Organization, as well as the Mental Health Institute, the main risk factors for suicide is one, being a male. So that's something you cannot change.
Wow.
Your age, less than 19 or older than 45 years old, being depressed or hopeless, having a previous attempt, having a mental illness, and also having a chronic illness as well, or chronic pain can increase your risk. Being divorced.
Really? That's a factor?
That is a factor. Being divorced, being widowed, having no social supports, alcohol and drug use, as we know, all contribute. Being in a minority group, such as prisoners or the LGBTQIA+ community as well. So all of those things contribute to the risk factors.
And is it because as you were listing them, I started thinking, okay, I can see why somebody may feel this is an option. I would see why somebody may feel this is an option. So primarily it's because of what they're facing in their life, issues that they're going through, and they feel as though there's no way out or there's no resolve. Why continue to live?
So suicide is a goal-directed action when someone is experiencing internal, existential, threatening pain, and they feel like they can't cope, and the only way to end that is to end their life.
Is suicide something that anybody, how do you become, I don't know if this term even exists really, but suicidal, right? Is it because the person has crossed the line of being rational and they can't control the fact that they feel they need to take their life? Or is it sometimes just based on that immediate frustration?
Excellent question, and both are true. So each of us, we have an emotional brain called our amygdala, and we have our rational brain called our frontal lobe. And when that suicide episode occurs, the emotional brain overtakes the rational thinking brain.
Wow.
So you're thinking with your amygdala and that emotion, and you can't see any way out.
Is there a cure for that? Can you treat that to cause there to be a better balance?
So in terms of suicide prevention and intervention, the World Health Organization moved it from being a mental health crisis to being a public health crisis in 2014.
Really?
Yes. So it's no longer a mental health crisis, it's actually worldwide a public health crisis. And they have a really cute mnemonic, Live Life, and it actually stands for something. So the L is to limit the access to the means. So our neighbors in the Caribbean, Trinidad, they had high instances of poisoning and they were using pesticides. So they had to put some control measures on that. Guns. In the Bahamas, I think we're doing an excellent job at gun control in most cases. And by having persons registered and being licensed, you limit the means and the access to ending your life. The I is where you come in, and that's our interaction with the media.
Really?
Really. Wow. And it's important for us to have responsible reporting. And yes, the country needs to know that someone was murdered yesterday, or 3 people were murdered this week, or like you just mentioned, someone attempted suicide. But after reporting the facts, give an educational tip and then give a resource. So it's a trifecta, because when you only report the traumatic incident that occurs, you leave the public fearful, you leave them anxious. So responsible reporting is, you have a job to do, right? I have a job to do, but also educate and provide them with a resource. So for example, with murdered victims, we have the FOAM organization. Put up a clip with the number or where they can go to reach and access that. Don't just say, okay, this person was murdered Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but don't provide them with a resource.
So for example, if we're reading a suicide script here at ZNS, a 30-year-old was attempted suicide. Yesterday, police say he was found hanging by a tree. Instead of ending right there, we say something like, if you know anyone or if you're feeling suicidal, you can call the Suicide Prevention Hotline at 502-3347.
Or these are the signs to look out for in your loved one. But don't just leave the public with fear and anxiousness.
That's a very important tip. Y'all, we can change our news status to that. Because that's important. And I always believe, even when we give news, we have to find ways to be able to help people and give more information, because people will be watching and saying, well, I might still go do the same thing. But if we're able to give people information and say, no, get help. If you're feeling this way, we can save another life.
And report what's happening. We need to know what's going on in our country, but the World Health Organization is as big as it can get, right? And one of their things that they notice is the media plays an important part in this. So we have to partner and work together.
Mental illness is something that we constantly try to talk about, but in this country...
The F and the E, but in a monitor. You can continue?
Yes.
So the F is to foster life skills.
Oh, I forgot you were still...
Right, so this is how you help persons who are suicidal and how do we prevent it. So the F is to foster life skills in young persons, right? And yes, it's important to learn about Columbus in school, and it's important to learn how to play the flute in school, but it's also important to learn about coping mechanisms and coping skills. It's also important to learn about conflict resolution. It's also important to learn about anger management. It's also important for that to recognize if they're having mental health symptoms and signs, right? So this is something that we can implement in the curriculum from the primary school level so that we can decrease suicides in our teens. And from the suicide statistics from the Bahamas Police Force, the highest age group in 2023 was 18 to 30 years old.
Wow.
Right? And that's seen universally. after car accidents and homicides in our teens and young people, suicide is the third leading cause of death.
In the Bahamas? Worldwide?
Well, in 2003, we had, out of all of the age groups, the 18 to 30-year-old age group was the highest.
Wow.
And worldwide, the third leading cause of death in teens is suicide. So yes, it's cute to learn about Columbus and playing the flute, but we need to teach our kids anger management, conflict resolution, signs and symptoms of mental health.
Thank you for that. I know we have 2 minutes left, but I have to ask, and that is because mental illness, I think, is growing in this country, but my fear is that we're not taking it serious in the Bahamas. What can we do to bring greater awareness to mental illness, especially those who may be suffering from it? Because people think, well, I'm crazy. But they have issues, and they don't know how to get help for issues. Talk to us about that.
So I disagree. After Hurricane Dorian and the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a shift in the Bahamas regarding mental health. Persons are now more empathetic, they're now more open, and they're now more understanding that it can happen to anyone. The stressors can impact you. You can have financial loss, you can lose your home, you can lose your loved one. We can have things to rock us to our core and foundation.
Wow.
And if you have a family history of mental illness, if you're struggling, those symptoms can come up to the surface. So it can happen to you, Clint, it can happen to myself, it can happen to my loved one. So I think there has been a step in the right direction after Hurricane Dorian and the COVID-19 pandemic.
Is everything treated with medication, or can it be through counseling as well?
Excellent question. Everything is not treated through medication. I like to let persons know that mental health is no different from physical health. For example, we all know someone who has high blood pressure, diabetes, or some chronic illness, right? When you go to the doctor, it depends on the severity of your illness. So if you're on the milder end of the spectrum and you have high blood pressure, your doctor doesn't necessarily need to give you medication. They can recommend you changing your diet, exercise, and lifestyle modification. Mental health works the same way. It depends on the severity of your illness. So in some cases, we can do counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, and different things. But if it's on the more severe end of the spectrum, just like hypertension, if you come in with a blood pressure of 200s over 110, you want your mom or your grandmother to live. So the doctor may have to give medication in that instance.
We got to rush to close, but I have to get this in. What do you do if you approach somebody on your job who you may see may perhaps be having some issues? Do you approach them? What do you do?
So it's a myth that not talking about it actually helps. If someone is suicidal or they seem depressed, ask them. Open the conversation. And sometimes persons want the help and they are crying for help in their actions and in their behaviors. Just ask them. And if they open up to you, there are resources available in the Bahamas, paid or publicly. We have a clinic, Collins Avenue, just like we have Elizabeth Estates, Fleming Street, Flamingo Gardens, that the public can access, or you can have your private provider as well. Meditation, exercise, something as simple as exercise can change your mood and has research shown change their mental health